loads of exciting development.
We go door to door in one of the neighborhoods.
Where the grotesquely high cost
system, but the thing about living in a college town is the energy.
In terms of neighbors.
Close to where they work, so affordable housing.
What is the future of transportation in Chapel Hill now that the light rail is gone?
I think that we need to support the bus rapid transit that is scheduled to happen for Martin Luther King. I think that's a very fast and efficient way of moving around town.
One of the things that we've tried to do in the past year is to expand the bus service.
I think the immediate future is the north-south bus rapid transit line.
We're planning now to put a new bus rapid transit route on Martin Luther King Drive that will connect us from Eubanks Road all the way down to Southern Village with faster transit and more responsive bus times.
The future is a multimodal transit system that connects our community both internally and regionally.
Continuing to pursue regional transportation solutions is vitally important.
Orange County commissioners need to lead the process and put it in place so we can begin crafting a regional transit solution. It's really important that as we do this, we do it in conjunction with our land use management ordinances, and we connect people to jobs, and we connect where they live to work in transit solutions.
Should students live off campus, and if so, how would you protect them while also balancing the needs of long-term residents?
I think it's important for students to live off campus at some point in their college careers. It really helps make them more independent and learn how to be adults.
Students will live off campus because the university's master plan has a net loss of 3 dorms at the same time that the university is increasing its enrollment.
It's not a question of should students live off campus, but it's about how students can be better residents and neighbors when they do live off campus.
Students should absolutely live off campus, and they do. So I think it's really past time to move us past the conversation about students versus year-round residents.
Part of the great thing about living in a college town is the energy that the students bring to it. I looked it up, and 49% of all undergraduates live off campus.
Students are local residents, whether they're on campus or not, and they are subject to protections, just as regular people who are long-term residents.
It can be cheaper to live in an apartment off campus than to live in the dorms. So I think it's a fine option for students.
Do you believe in climate change, and if so, what should the town's first steps be?
Climate change is happening whether people believe it or not.
Climate change is absolutely real.
It's no longer disputable, and we are feeling it here in town.
The town's first step should be to plan for mixed-use, walkable, transit-oriented communities along our transit corridors.
One of the most important things that we need to do as a town council is support strategies that will get people out of their cars.
I'd like to expand our current outreach efforts to help people in the community green their own lives.
We've got to do the big things first, make sure we have adequate resources to do that. We have to get people out of cars.
So UNC has been the center of protest over the last year. How should student protests be handled, and what is the town's role in that?
So UNC is responsible for policing on campus, and the town of Chapel Hill is responsible for policing off campus, and there's been an expectation of mutual support for events.
Students especially have been an outspoken voice for securing and protecting civil rights and have a right to organize for what they believe in.
We have to make sure that students and anybody on campus are safe, that there are no injuries, and that to the extent if there are protests and counter-protests, that the police force, whether it's UNC or the town, make sure there's adequate separation, because first and foremost, we want to make sure that our students, our faculty, our staff, and our residents are all safe from harm.
Protests are good for getting media attention, but beyond that, then there are other things that we can do.
Rights to protest should be protected, but we have to be balancing them with protection of the safeties of the protesters and the community.
Students need to be able to speak out and to be able to speak against injustice and do it safely.
The town's role, I think, is to protect the students and make sure everybody is safe. So I think police and law enforcement should be present and make sure that the students are fine.
So should Confederates be allowed to rally either on campus or in the town?
Cut this part out, but our Constitution and our nation value freedom of speech. Recently, our country has been swallowed in a debate over whether or not the Confederates' right to organize is an exercise of this freedom or a show of hate and violence towards the diversity that makes our town great.
As a believer in free speech and the right of assembly for everyone, it's a hard thing for me to say that any particular group shouldn't be allowed to exercise those rights. I do believe strongly that the residents of our town should be protected from violent action and intimidation. Because of their proximity to campus, our businesses and residents, especially minority residents downtown, have special claim on the town's attention and protection.
Yes, they should be allowed to rally because it's a free speech issue, and everyone has a right to free speech, whether or not we like what they have to say. Other people also have the right to counter-protest.
Well, I don't think we can prevent any group from rallying in town, and that would be a violation of their First Amendment rights.
My personal belief is that hate speech should not be allowed on campus or in town. Unfortunately, the law says that they can, as long as they are peaceful, they don't bring weapons.
The price we pay for living in the kind of free society that we all treasure is allowing some demonstrations and people whose views we abhor allowed to express those viewpoints.
I don't think we can do much because they do have a right to voice their opinions. So I would say that when they do come, I would like the police to be there. In terms of on campus, I would hope that there's a way to keep them off because I think the campus should be a safe space for students.
If elected, what do you think the town should do about the Confederate presence in our community? And do you believe the town's actions in response so far have been adequate?
I think that, based on my previous answer, I do understand legally that Confederate sympathizers are allowed to be in public and use their First Amendment freedom of speech rights. And I think we've also learned a lot about ways that we can have protesters from both sides of this issue in places safely.
The town should engage residents on this issue and be more clear about what we stand for as a community against discriminatory behavior and speech.
It's our job, though, to ensure that everyone feels welcome and included in our town, and to know that as a town we don't condone racism.
The first responsibility of our police force is public safety and keeping people safe from harm.
I don't think there's a lot we can do in terms of their being around, but I do think that we should discourage it.
I think the town needs to make sure that they keep people safe, and that is their primary role.
Although I hate calling the Confederates an imperfection, life does not go the way we want it to go, and we need to be able to deal with this in a way that keeps people safe and protects people as much as possible.
So what should Chapel Hill look like 20 years from now?
20 years from now, I would like to see a Chapel Hill that had managed to balance growth with preservation of the things that we value. I'd like to see new growth in the right place and at the right size that fits into the existing fabric of our community.
I imagine a vibrant downtown. I would love to see the startup community and the office buildings, more residents, unique and interesting restaurants and stores, very walkable with art installations and maybe canopy trees and maybe tourism. There's a lot in Chapel Hill we can brag about and show.
I'd like to see more people feel welcome in Chapel Hill because ultimately we all just want to live a good life.
Greener, both physically and metaphorically, that it is well on its way to becoming carbon neutral.
I think Chapel Hill should retain all the great things and also continue to grow and be more exciting.
Chapel Hill should be a less car-dependent community. At that point, I hope we are going to have more extensive local transit service. We will also have a regional transit solution.
Chapel Hill should have beautiful spaces marked with greenery where people can walk, bike, and public transit to any place in our community.
Who's your favorite UNC basketball player, past or present?
Bobby Jones.
No hesitation, I like that.
I like it too. All right.
Amazing.
It's a tie between Harrison Barnes and Marcus Page. They're both Iowa guys, and they're salt of the earth. And when you look at their work ethic, it's amazing. It's true Iowa. I'm from Iowa, so that's what.
Oh, it's gotta be Vince Carter. That dunk he did in the Olympics that one time over the 7'5" French dude. Classic.
Cool. Okay.
Rasheed Wallace, who has a lot of heart, and he is now the basketball coach at Jordan High School over in Durham, which is super exciting. And then I guess I would also say Tyler Hansbrough, Psycho T, because when I was pregnant with my oldest child, I saw him at South Point Mall, and then we won the national championship that year in 2009, which was really exciting.
That's a good answer.
I I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can talk to you about land use.
I love that.
Michael Jordan.
Cool. I think that's it.
Great.
Yeah.
Is that-
Oh my God, I went to Duke.